If you're Patrick, then who's that? A real gorilla!
Plot twists are easily one of the most commonly recognizable writing techniques. It was him? No, it was them. Some things like this? Fuck you, it's like that instead. But how do you actually construct a plot twist? Just do something unexpected isn't exactly sound advice here, as that being your only guideline is a good way to disappoint everyone, JJ. Just being surprising isn't enough. I'm really no authority on any of this, but if I had to say what makes a good plot twist, and this is my video so I'm gonna say it, I'd say it has to have one of two qualities, two approaches if you will. One, either something new is revealed that nonetheless fits seamlessly into the story, or two, existing elements are combined and recontextualized into a new development. It's essentially the difference between the plot twist creating new information and the plot twist simply merging and combining pre-existing information. And it is this second approach that I would like to talk about today, an approach that I like to call the toolbox method. Every time the author presents a piece of information, it isn't just relevant to the scene it is presented in. Instead, the author stores that piece in a proverbial toolbox together with all the other information they created. When it comes to then write a plot twist, instead of creating new information, the author simply grabs into his toolbox, finds information that fits together, and uses that to twist the plot into a new and exciting direction that is nonetheless founded in clearly established and pre-existing information. Or, in other words, these kind of plot twists work because we, the readers and viewers, could reasonably have predicted it, but we didn't. Okay, a lot of technical talk, let's get down to some practical examples. Woo! Koei Horikoshi's My Hero Academia is really fucking good, don't fight me on this. And, just recently, the anime aired one of its big moments, the climax of Deku vs. Overhaul. And it was great. However, this fight also climaxes with a really solid and cool plot twist. Deku can usually not use his power, one for all, at 100%, as it would tear his body apart. However, by strapping Eri on his back, a girl whose power is to rewind things into previous state, he manages to harness his full power, as Eri just continuously reverses the damage that output keeps producing. This not only makes for an amazing finale, but it is also an example of a toolbox plot twist. No new information is actually created here. We are told basically from the beginning that Deku is theoretically able to use 100%. In fact, that's what he does for the first couple of arcs. However, every time he does, he breaks his body pretty badly, leading him to reasonably abandoning using 100%. Meanwhile, Eri's quirk, being Rewind, may be elaborated upon shortly before the twist, but her power is established way earlier, as it is a centerpiece to Overhaul's plan and the reason he thinks she is cursed. Both of these pieces of information are created completely separate from one another and from the twist, which makes it unlikely for us to try and combine them ourselves before the twist actually happens. But once Horikoshi takes these two elements and makes them interact, the ensuing 100% twist is an incredibly organic and natural development from these two aspects existing together. This then creates a very fluid plot progression that is nonetheless quite surprising, not to mention hype. But its biggest achievement is that it perfectly fits into the story without actually changing anything, because both of these elements already existed. Let's look at another example of Horikoshi using the toolbox method to great effect. But for that, we will have to get into manga spoilers! This is your only warning. From this point onwards, we are in manga territory. We good? Good. During the joint training arc, which pitted Class A versus Class B, Deku's quirk went berserk and gifted him with a vision of a previous user. This bloke then revealed to him and the audience that One for All actually stored all the quirks of the predecessors, and that Deku will eventually have access to all of their powers to some degree, effectively giving him 7 quirks. Now, when this first dropped in chapter 213, the fandom's response was a measured and calm, "What the fuck, dude?" Even I was worried, making my to-date only chapter reaction video. However, after thinking on it a bit, I have come to massively appreciate this twist and all it does to the story. And, for today's purposes, it is also an incredibly well-built example of a toolbox plot twist. We are told in chapter 1 of the series that 80% of the population has quirks. And after the Stain arc, we are told that the first user had a quirk that can transmit quirks, which is how One for All came to be and works. And that's it. These two pieces of information is all this twist needed and is based on. 80% quirk users means that there is an incredibly high chance that the predecessors possessed quirks of their own before inheriting One for All. And since they can continue to transmit the power, it means that the quirk transmitter also transmits itself, which itself implies that it transmits all quirks present in a person. These are not stretches, they are logical deductions based on information given in the text. And so, we, for literal years, sat on the clues necessary to predict this development. By all means, we all should have seen this coming, but basically nobody did. The information was presented in such a way that it was so relevant for the scenes of their initial mentioning that we really didn't think about either of them being taken out of the toolbox again like that. By presenting them like that, Horikoshi minimized the possibility of the twist being obvious. But because the twist is based solely on early established information, it makes perfect sense and creates a natural development for the story while fitting in seamlessly with the world and story Horikoshi is telling. And to quickly talk about that development, thanks to this twist, Deku becomes more versatile without getting too overpowered. He still has to work hard to gain these quirks, some of them are probably useless, and we're probably not going to see him use all of them at once until well into the endgame. Also, Shigaraki can level cities now, so overpowered really isn't a concern. So now we have seen two examples of the toolbox method working incredibly well in Hiraka. But no writing technique is without its pitfalls and shortcomings, and every author has times where they underperform. So let's look at two examples, again from Hiraka, where this approach didn't work so well and where Horikoshi didn't execute it all that well. And our first example is somewhat odd, as it's a plot twist that hasn't actually happened yet. Introducing the curious case of Dabi, supervillain. Now, you, me, your parents, your neighbor, Benedict Cumberbatch, we all know that Dabi is very, very likely Toya Todoroki, Shoto's lost brother and Endeavor's eldest son. The clues are all over the place, from Dabi's quirk to his demeanor. It's painfully obvious that that's what his identity is. It's gotten so clear that I even announced that if it ever got deconfirmed, I would make a video wearing a clown costume discussing it. That's how sure I am. And there is some really cool pre-established information regarding this twist. For example, Endeavor mentioning that Toya had strong flames that his body couldn't resist and got damaged from, then finding out Dabi's own flames hurt his body too, only to then go back into earlier arcs and his earlier appearances and realize that he, from his very first time he showed on screen, always retracted and recoiled his hand after using fire because he doesn't want to get burned, is a really satisfying sequence of realizations. But you see, that's the issue. We know Dabi is Toya, it is basically confirmed, but it hasn't actually been confirmed yet. As of right now, January 2020, Dabi being Toya is still not even mentioned in the story. It's not been revealed and is still supposedly up in the air. This is a case where the toolbox method's inherent need for pre-established information backfires. The information is so abundantly present and available, and the lines of deduction so clear, that the plot twist has already happened in the reader's minds way before it actually happens in the story on paper. This creates a frustrating lose-lose situation. If Horikoshi decides to confirm that Dabi is Toya tomorrow, the overwhelming response would likely be, "Ugh, finally," and "Ugh, took you long enough," from me included. And if he deconfirms it, and Dabi is someone else, it's my grandma, it's just gonna feel cheap and out of nowhere, most likely. So here, the toolbox approach has forced Horikoshi into a very delicate situation that I don't envy, where no matter what he does, he has to be very, very careful if he wants to still maximize on this twist or the lack of it. Our last example for today is one of Hiroaka's most recent plot twists, and it concerns Kurogiri. Here, it is revealed that the misty babysitter of the League of Villains and antagonist since day one is actually created out of the corpse of Oboro Shirakumo, ex-UA student and former friend to Aizawa and present Mike before his passing. This is clearly presented and meant as an emotionally charged moment, with Aizawa's cold facade gradually breaking down into a much more emotional, broken mess. This is given a lot of attention, it gets 2 chapter cliffhangers, and it's very clearly a massive twist to the story. But here's the thing. While seeing the stoic Aizawa break down in of itself is pretty resonant, the star of this twist should be Shirakumo and his fate. But any actual information regarding him is not actually present in My Hero Academia. Instead, it is relegated to a flashback arc in the spin-off manga, My Hero Academia Vigilantes. So it's this weird situation where the necessary information to this twist, Shirakumo's quirk, his life, and his death, were theoretically pre-established, but in the wrong manga. Horikoshi does try to bring some of this info into the main story, but he does so immediately after the reveal, and he only really gives a Spark Notes version a la, he was a friend, he died, how sad. This creates the unfortunate situation where I, and readers in general, understand the twist cognitively, but we don't feel it. This is a good example of how raw information sometimes isn't enough to maximize the impact of a twist. In this case, just being matter-of-factly told that Shirakumo was their friend is just too detached and doesn't really create any of the weight the flashback in Vigilantes and additional material would have brought to the table. Granted, even the stuff in Vigilantes itself might have been insufficient, as that itself is relatively limited. But regardless of that, this is a case of pre-established information existing but not being available and expanded enough to maximize the narrative and emotional potential. Another trap one can fall into when following the information-focused toolbox method. And there we have it. 4 examples of how Kore Horikoshi employs the toolbox method within Hiroaka, both to great effect and to unfortunate disappointment. Overall, I think he handles plot twists like these relatively well, with the majority of his manga having a satisfying flow of events and developments, even up to now with the most recent chapters. However, he is a writer like any other, and like every writer, he makes mistakes and has flaws and still has to learn, and in this case, his reliance on his method of constructing twists has bitten him in the ass. But considering how young Horikoshi is, and that Hiroaka is only just now approaching its probable middle point, it's safe to say that this is an approach that will continue to be polished and perfected. Horikoshi is already a really well-trained writer. He knows how to create plot twists, and these little stumbles just show that he still has to learn. I personally cannot wait to see how he continues to grow as a writer. But for now, thanks for watching, take care, consider subscribing, ring the bell to stay notified, all that jazz. If you've been on YouTube, you know what I mean. Take care, my friends. See you all next time.